Today we have a conversation with a new guest to the show, Mike Cocozza from Trinity Custom Homes, and we have back our familiar friend, Mark Sultana from DSDG Architects, and they've collaborated on quite a lot of projects together, and it's always interesting when you see the builder and the architect have a conversation together about some of the projects that they do. So I think this was a really insightful conversation, and without further ado, I hope you enjoy our show. Well, thank you, gentlemen, both for coming on today, and I think it's going to be a great conversation to have an architect and builder together. So, you guys collaborate quite a lot, and there's a lot of unique challenges that architects and builders face together harmoniously, ideally. Sometimes that might not be the case, but maybe we could just start with like a little background. We know you, Mark, you've been here before, but we could start with just a quick background.
Yeah, Mark Sultana, Principal Architect at DSDG Architects. Been in business here in Sarasota since 2001. Mm-hmm. Created a lot of the landmark buildings here in town and plan on doing it for a long time to come.
Absolutely. And Mike, we know you personally for many years, but you're new to our audience here, so why don't we get a quick intro from you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm Mike Cocozza. I am president of Trinity Custom Homes, born and raised here in Sarasota, second generation builder. And my company started in 2010, and nothing better than being able to do what you love in the town that you grew up in.
Absolutely. So roughly how long can either of you recall when you first began working together on your first project?
We actually started working together before Mike even had started his business with a previous construction company that Mike was with, and we kind of hit it off right away. I realized Mike was real attentive to what he did. He was very serious about it and very, an approach that not all contractors have. Mm-hmm. And it impressed me right off the bat.
Yeah.
So, and to add on to what you were talking about, the architect and the contractor, we're a team. Without that team, you don't get successful projects. Mm-hmm. So it's important to have a good working team.
Absolutely. And I know that, Mike, of course, you work with other architects as well, and Mark, you work with other builders, right. But it's great whenever you've got a harmonious working relationship, and you have very ambitious designs that you want to see actualized. Your customers do as well, and mm-hmm. to be able to cooperate with a quality builder such as Mike. And we've had our realtors that you were gracious enough to allow our realtors to come through some of your recent projects that are incredibly impressive, to say the least. And so it's great to see these things come to life here in our community.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say the same. I remember the first time I spoke with Mark. I was working for another builder on a beautiful house on Point Crisp. One that like any good builder, father, husband, points out to their wife and kids every time we pass it on the boat. Daddy built that house over there. And I remember framing that house because I started off as a framer, and my twin brother and I, Jesse, we ran a framing company in town, and so did a lot of rough framing and finished carpentry for a lot of beautiful homes on the water here for other builders. And I remember the first time I picked the phone and called Mark, and I was, as a younger guy in the industry, I really looked up to Mark, and he had a great name for himself. And was putting out great projects, and just hit it off right off the bat. He was very easy to speak with, and I think he appreciated the fact that we were trying to make sure that his designs were built, exactly according to how he wanted them, and so it was a very easy conversation right off the bat. So it was pretty neat. I know I was excited, when I was at that point in my career to start establishing that relationship. So.
Yeah. And do you recall roughly when that was about? Like what year maybe?
Yeah, I think we built Point Crisp in like 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, around mm-hmm. there.
Yeah, and that's an outstanding project, by the way, also. I mean, it's an iconic home in this community, so.
Yeah. Be careful when driving your boat at night.
Yeah.
You're going to run into it.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So, there's a lot of different directions that we could go, but, maybe we could start with some of the things that you've done together. Are there any notable, kind of more recent projects maybe that come to mind that you had some challenges and had to put your heads together and figure out how to.
Well, I think one that probably everybody knows about is the sand dune house on Lido Beach.
Right.
Yeah, that was an extremely complicated project. There was actually, I believe, 4 architects on that project before we got involved, and nobody could figure it out. They couldn't figure out how to make the curves and the structure work. We came in secondhand, so we didn't do the design necessarily. We were given a design, and then we implemented the overall design and made it realistic.
I see.
The design we were given didn't meet the setbacks. It didn't meet the height restriction. It didn't meet any of the code required regulations that the city had. So we had to take the design that the client had fallen in love with and make it realistic. And then create construction drawings that we thought, oh my God, we need a really good contractor to build this, or it's not going to happen.
Right.
So in stepped Mike, and there were some things on that house that even I got out there, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Especially the we call it the bow of the boat, underside of the pool. It has this like convex curve. And Mike, maybe you could talk about how you guys built that, because that was like building a boat. Really.
It was, exactly, very much like building a boat. We looked at it, and I scratched my head, and a lot of sleepless nights. Like, oh gosh, as soon as we get to this point, like, how are we? Like, time's ticking. I need to figure out how we're going to build this thing. And so one of the unique things about what we do, or our approach as builders, are, I believe in, prior proper planning, and understanding our projects. And so one of the tools that we utilize is a 3D modeling software. So before we get into building the home, we'll actually start modeling it. So we'll take the plans that we receive, and we'll start building each piece of those two-dimensional plan set into a 3D component and start putting it together, see how it's all going to fit. And fortunately, we do have a team of carpenters on staff as well, which is pretty unique to our team. And so I got together with my carpenters and my project manager, and we modeled everything three-dimensionally. We modeled, I think there was like 52 pairs, like 104 sheets of plywood, each individually cut, but mirrored on each side of starting from the center, working out. And we modeled each piece and put it into our 3D model, made sure it all worked. And then we pulled each piece out of our model, dimensioned it, and created a cut sheet for it, like a cabinet maker would. And we had our carpenters make every piece.
Wow.
And then we mapped out like a grid line pattern on top and below, and fit every single puzzle piece in. And when we looked at it at the end, it was just flawless. It was. So I was very happy when that was done and it was all worked out. But I couldn't do it without my carpenters on our staff, and then our project manager Ethan, who kind of took it after I modeled it 3D. He took it and did all the hard work of dimensioning every piece, and so it was pretty remarkable.
That is remarkable. We've learned a little from Mark about the size and scope of your operation and staff and everything. I'd love, if you don't mind, tell us more about your operation and kind of how your leadership team's comprised and all the inner workings of Trinity.
Yeah, so we are a staff of 33 now, and so we have 12 carpenters on staff, and then we've got 21 between office. We've got 3 people full-time in the office, full-time estimator, office manager, and receptionist. And then the rest, I guess it's 18, project manager, superintendents. And so I've got 4 key individuals that are vice presidents in the company that help me run the business and help me run the day-to-day operations, but they also operate in the field as project managers, each person kind of taking on a different amount of projects just based on the complexity of the project. So I've got like one vice president who oversees a team of 5 superintendents, and those are projects that may not necessarily have quite the detail level or the complexity level, and then 3 project managers that oversee just one specific project that's very complex, like a sand dune house project, or the project we just finished on North Washington, very detailed, that require just brain power 24/7 on those jobs. So
wow, yeah. So I'm curious, what ratio would you say are of your projects, is it like 70% kind of don't require too much heavy lifting, or like 30% really have you hustling to figure stuff out, or what would you say?
That's a great question. I think, I think when you get into some of these projects like the Sand Dune House or the project on North Washington, or even one we just finished in Bay Isles about a year and a half ago, they require so much planning, and we've really put such an emphasis on understanding what our process is and the 3D modeling, and now we're actually implementing robotic layout technologies that we can bring our 3D model into, and this is giving us very accurate layouts. The more that we see how beneficial these tools are, the more that they become standard processes for each project. So I'd love to say that some are easier than the other, but we're just a little fanatical about the detail and the accuracy of our builds. So pretty much all of these processes end up getting implemented on every single project. So it's really about the duration of the project, really, how long of a project it's going to be, whether it's a 12-month project or a 36-month project, that determines where those, very specialized project managers are going to land.
Yeah, and I'm sure as you implement new techniques, that's something that obviously you retain that knowledge, and it's part of the repertoire going forward, and you incorporate more and more of those designs. I'm curious if between the two of you, maybe, is there, this might be a weird question, but is there something that you're wanting to build that nobody's asked for yet, or something you're wanting to design that nobody's asked for yet? Or?
I think pretty much everybody's asked for everything. Yeah. We have the Sand Dune House is really unique and original. The concrete on that house took a year.
Wow.
Now, how many pounds of concrete are in that house? Do you remember?
Oh, gosh, I have to go back through my notes.
Million something.
It's almost like there's a little bit of a brain block, like, oh, it's done. Let me forget it.
Yeah, but a year just to do the concrete.
Wow.
And then everything else was finishing. But
yeah,
we have another one we're working on now that has a master bedroom on the 3rd floor that's completely cantilevered off the house.
Okay.
I think it's 18 feet. Cantilevers out towards the bay.
Wow.
Mike's building that one, and there's just every project is a little different, and we try to incorporate nuances and new technology and new design into everything we do, without being arrogant about it. It's every client has different desires and different styles that they like, so we give them what they want, but we try to at the same time impress them with what we give them.
Right. Mike, you mentioned North Washington was another that might have kind of stretched your limits a little bit. So if you don't mind describing that project.
Yeah, North Washington. So we just finished that. Clients moved in right before Christmas, and we just were able to get our final photography done this week.
Yeah, Wednesday.
And
okay. Nice.
So that project was a complete concrete shell as well. So that was 11 months of concrete on that project as well. And very detailed when you're trying to. I'm going to kind of back up a second, because you'd asked a question about is there anything that you want to build?
Yeah.
For us, it's not really about a specific design or a specific style that we want to build. For us, it's the process. We just love the process, and we love teaming up with architects and making their design and their vision come to reality in the most accurate and efficient manner that it possibly can. And so I think that's what works out really great between Mark's team and DSDG and us. And we've had the opportunity and luxury to do a number of projects together, and they see that we care about what we do, and we care about making sure that their designs come out very well, and that their clients are happy. And I think that early in our career, we just have done a lot of work together, and just kind of we formed this natural fit together, which is great. But
that's fantastic.
Yeah, North Washington was definitely a big process, but fortunately, all of our projects, our clients are moved in now. They're thrilled. They're happy. Just spent some great time with them and got some good feedback, and just had an opportunity to do an exit interview with them, which is something I like to do with all of our clients.
Nice.
I want to hear what you loved about the process, what you did, and what we could improve upon. And so I think it's important as a business owner to just make sure you're listening to your client's perception of you.
Absolutely, for sure. Was there anything about the North Washington project that kind of stretched your design capabilities much? Or
Well, it was capturing the views was the very important part of the design of that house, and then also creating privacy for the owners along the roadside.
I see.
So on that particular project, I worked with one of the architects in the firm, Casey Allen, and he did most of the design on the project with, with my backup. But it comes back to teams, and working together as a collaborative to create unique structures. I mean, I've been doing this here in Florida for 30 years now, and sometimes it's tricky to come up with something new. So that I rely on some of the younger architects in the office to liven it up a little bit more, bring some new ideas. Sometimes they're realistic, sometimes they're not.
Right.
And it's just a process that we have, and I think it's a good process because again the collaboration happens where if somebody's stuck, everybody gets stuck on creativity. That we collaborate together, and sometimes just getting stuck creates a better project. Sure. Where we'll have 2 or 3 architects or some interns or even the interior designers come in and give us some ideas that we may not have thought about, and then we improve on those ideas and make just a better architecture and better design.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'd like to maybe pivot again to like maybe what you're seeing in design trends, or like what customers are asking for, what you anticipate in the future. Is there anything that kind of keeps coming up that's a little bit different from what you've designed or built in the past that you're kind of seeing the trends go a little bit of a different direction, or where are we at in that design?
Well, definitely for us, 90% of the clients that come to us want something modern, but not stark. Mm-hmm. So, we call that a warm modern design, where we incorporate woods and stones and, different items, different materials to make a modern structure not feel like a museum.
Right.
So that has been the trend for at least the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Occasionally we'll do a West Indies style, or nobody's asked for Mediterranean in a long time, so we haven't done that in a while.
Yeah.
But coastal contemporary or modern farmhouse, we get that quite a bit too. But it's more and more. We've even had clients that come in and say, well, we want a West Indies house. And once we get into it and they come into our office, they see our pictures of our houses on the walls. Like, we think we changed our mind. We want that, and that's great. I love it. That's the style we prefer to work on. And I think that we have the expertise in. Although as architects, I think you have to know everything. So
right.
In terms of design, we can do it all.
Yeah. Are there different materials associated with some of these different trends that you prefer to work with more than others, or that you think kind of finish more nicely, or
Yeah, obviously with the modern, you're dealing with more rigid materials, concrete and steel.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, that kind of requires a bit more precision, because you're not covering it with stucco and like hiding stuff.
Yeah. I think I may have fibbed a little bit earlier when I said I don't really have a particular style. I really enjoy building modern, primarily because of the challenge. It's a challenge to execute modern design style very well, because there's nowhere to hide from your mistakes. In a lot of different architectural styles, you have a lot more, I'll just kind of call it gingerbread. There's a lot more layers of materials and things like this that you can kind of fudge mistakes here and there. And in modern architecture, you've got nowhere to hide from it. So everything's got to be very critical and very precise. And I think that part of it, I really appreciate. And I'm very fortunate to have a team who is very much the same way.
They kind of embrace that challenge with you.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time talking people out of coming to work for us during the interview process to really kind of set the expectation, like, hey, it's going to be a challenge. We're looking for somebody who is going to eat, sleep, and breathe this. And so we've been very fortunate to find some really good people who really just have accepted that challenge, and everybody feeds off one another. But it's modern style, you're a lot of concrete. We're doing a number of homes that have got full concrete roof, so full concrete shell, and a lot of that is, realistically, I think a lot of that comes from clients who have relocated down to Florida from other states who have never really been through a hurricane before, don't really understand it, and they're kind of thinking worst case scenario, and they're going, hey, listen, like, I don't want to build another house ever again. Like, I want it bomb proof. Like, give me the concrete roof, give me everything, and so it's great. I mean, we've done a couple of them now, and they've, through the few storms we've gotten, clients have stayed, no problem, and it came back with success stories like, hey, it's been great. It was fun to watch the storm, and no big issues, and so yeah.
One thing I think that might be interesting, and I know we're kind of running out of time here a little bit, but we're all longtime Sarasotans. There's a lot of people that have been migrating here from all kinds of places, and I think it might be interesting for the three of us to just talk about what Sarasota was and where it's going. And for Mark and I, our oldest kids were in preschool together. We've known each other a long time. For you, Mike, I mean, we weren't like close pals growing up, but 25, 30 years ago, we were out surfing at Siesta Beach with our, pals and seeing each other in the lineup and stuff. And so, are you guys kind of happy with the way that the trajectory Sarasota is on and feel like it's heading in a positive place in the future? I'm just curious, kind of your thoughts on that.
Well, I wasn't born here, but I've lived here for 30 years now. Right out of college, I moved to Sarasota, and I moved here from New York. So it's a big difference, right? People complain about traffic, and I still don't see the traffic. It's a little bit of congestion, but not traffic. Not like we're from where I came from.
Right.
But, and you can't help it. If there's an accident, things get held up. But, I really enjoy the place I live now. When I first moved here 30 years ago, there weren't very many young people.
Right.
And I'm not young like I was then, but I really enjoy the people that are here, the people that we've become friends with and that we know. And I think the town is very safe. I never worry about, security or, things that I worried about when I lived up north.
Yeah.
And there's buildings going up, and I think that's all part of, a city growing. Like any place growing, you're going to have development, especially when you live in such a unique, special, amazing paradise. People want to be here, just like we want to be here.
Right.
And just because they're new to town doesn't mean they shouldn't have the same ability to have what we have, that we've been here longer. So with that comes growth, and I'm okay with it all.
Yeah, well, we're all biased. I mean, we're participating in the growth and benefiting from that. But there's a lot of restrictive policies in place for the city of Sarasota that keep it manageable. And, so I love what the community is becoming.
I attend a lot of like public hearings because we also do commercial projects, and the commercial projects all have to go in front of the neighborhoods and the planning board and the commissioners. And it just baffles my mind when people come out and not in my backyard.
Right.
Okay, well, then it's going to be in somebody's backyard.
Right.
So it is what it is. If a project is allowed to be on that piece of property by zoning rights, then why? Sure. Why are you complaining about it?
Why oppose it?
It is what it is.
Right.
And if you don't like it, you could go somewhere else that may not have those type of regulations. I choose to live east of the interstate. We have a big property, and the zoning won't allow a big building to be built next door to me. But if you live downtown, you should be okay with a restaurant going in next door to you, where there's outdoor music and people enjoying themselves. That's part of being downtown.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
How do you feel about where we were and where we're headed? And
yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. We're all a little biased here. It's it's how we put food on the table, But having been born right there at Sarasota Memorial and living in Sarasota my whole life, with the exception of going to school in Orlando.
So you beat Mark and I both. We're still immigrants.
It's It's really a blessing for me. I was just telling somebody the other day, something I say very frequently, that it is such a blessing to be able to do something that I love at some of the highest levels. With all due respect to the Midwest, if I had grown up somewhere in the Midwest, I certainly wouldn't be building the sand dune house. I certainly wouldn't be getting these opportunities, And so to be in a market where we have a client base who is willing to afford us the opportunity to build some of the projects that we build is truly a blessing for me. I really enjoy it because I love a challenge. But I'm very fortunate to be able to raise my kids here and have a family here. My wife, I met my wife, she's from Charlotte, and I met her when she was attending the Ringling School of Art and Design.
Oh, wow.
We get to work together on a number of projects. She's an interior designer, and
Nice.
she had big dreams of moving to Europe to be a
Okay.
furniture designer after school, and kind of
Yeah.
looked at me real funny and said, "You've been here your whole life. Don't you want to move anywhere else?" And I said, I looked around and I said, "Why? It's paradise here."
Yeah.
I tell people frequently who have never really spent a whole lot of time on the water here in Sarasota that, it's a completely different way to experience Sarasota, and you've got so many benefits. And I think when you live in a place that's as beautiful as this, it's a little obtuse to not consider the fact that people are going to find it and enjoy as much as you are, and that they're going to want to call it home. And I think we can't talk out of both sides of our mouth. When this is what we do that helps us to earn our living and do what we do for a living. We can't then talk out the other side of our mouth and complain about the traffic and everything else. And
Sure.
there's a lot of beautiful. I love old Florida. There's nothing better than getting down into getting on the boat and heading down to like Cabbage Key and even further south and visiting some of these places. Me personally, 42 years old, I never really saw that old Florida aspect of Sarasota. It was already, beginning to be developed when I was born. And some of the, some of like my grandfather grew up on Casey Key back when the fishermen lived
wow.
on Casey Key, and
That
so
would have been something
he's
to
got
see,
some
yeah.
stories to tell. But even talking to him, I don't get the negative aspect of it. He's really interested to see what's going on. So I love where I live. I wouldn't live
Yeah.
anywhere else.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, as we wrap up, is there a project that you guys are working on together currently that you're at liberty to talk about, something that we should watch out for? Or
We have one in Harbor Acres that's
Okay.
just coming out of the ground right now. It's going to be something really special. The finishes, the materials, the client is open to all kinds of ideas. Everything from frameless windows that meet hurricane requirements
Wow.
to giant cantilevers, and it's going to be special.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, we'll have to follow up on that.
just coming out of the ground.
Just poured the first elevated slab today.
Yeah.
So, how, I'm just curious, for something like that where it's probably a little more difficult to source materials like these windows you mentioned. I mean, these are probably not Home Depot windows, obviously.
No.
So I'm curious what you have to like plan in advance for to make sure that your stages of building or progressing it.
A lot. A lot. It was, it wasn't part of the original design. And, going through the pre-construction process, our client had a lot of, ideas after the fact, after design. And so we started looking at these. And so it was field trips up to Tampa. We actually have a really great fabricator or window manufacturing company that does these here, very close in Tampa. So looking at those, and then we have to look at the weight of the windows, and then get back in touch with Mark's team and the engineer and say, okay, is the slab that's supporting these windows below, is it strong enough to support this added weight? And so there's a lot of coordination that needs to occur to make it happen.
It's very interesting. We'll have to have another conversation to follow up on how this all works out. But Mike, if somebody would like to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you at Trinity?
Yeah, absolutely. Our office phone number is 1-833-SRQ-Trinity.
Okay.
Our website is SarasotaCustomHomebuilder.com, and we're all over social media. We make a big push for that. So
Yeah,
we
have a lot of beautiful projects to share, so thank you for being here. And Mark, what's the best way for customers to reach you?
They can call the office at 941-955-5645, or the website is a full portfolio of our work, DSDG Architects.com.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you both so much for being here, and it's always a pleasure to have these inspiring conversations, and we'll keep in touch. We'll
Thank you,
check in
Robert.
as these projects progress.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.